Welcome to this video about yourself. You are investing your time well. There are two foundational parts I would like to talk about within this session. Firstly, we are going to define the concept of the self and all those concepts around, which are very foundational to understand. And secondly, we have a look into the tools you have to figure out your authentic self and who you really are. We are not diving into philosophy, but we are rather talking about the psychology regarding your personality, talents, values, and preferences in life. My name is Marco Sander. I'm a psychologist, leader, and founder of the seminar and coaching company Straight Mind, and I'm looking forward to hosting this session with you. One's authentic self is the essential being of a person. It is one's authentic and truthful nature. It is the awareness of one's own inner person. The authentic self is not a view or opinion, it is the truth, basically one's genetics. But it of course also evolves throughout your lifespan. Now, we also have a self-concept or belief about ourselves, about who we are. The self-concept is something rather private and subjective. Just as every belief system, it is also changeable. It is a complex web of beliefs and collections of schemas about your traits. It includes the past, present, and future, who I was, who I am, who I will become. It includes your best possible self, your ideal self, and yourself you ought to be. Now, additionally, don't mix up the self-concept with your identity. The identity is superimposed on the self. The identity is about who the person is, what the person is like. It is about the set of roles and relationships somebody has. What kind of values and priorities somebody has and who he or she might become. Basically, the concept itself is very similar to the concept of the self-concept. But the identity is fully defined by the outer world, by other people. It's socially defined and created by the larger society. You are basically born with this identity. Unfortunately, we're often not fully able to shut down the outer voices and be silent enough to listen to our inner voice, our authentic self. And only you are able to hear this voice because the authentic self is wholly contained within yourself. The problem is that we are falling for self-deception. We are not only deceiving ourselves, but others help us doing so as well. Our own self-concept correlates with how you believe others regard you. For example, if people tell you over and over again that you're a loser, that you're not very talented when it comes down to, playing, for example, table tennis, you will believe it and at some point integrate it in your self-concept. And the next time you're in a table tennis situation, you will put yourself down and really think, I'm not good at playing table tennis. This might become a limiting belief, and this belief in fact then leads to diminished performance. And in return, you think limiting beliefs are true, and it's just reinforcing each other. Also, notice that it is not only about the explicit opinions people have on you, but also very subtle opinions that are never verbalized. And this just shows how vulnerable we are. So, let's get to the point. Essentially, the question comes up, how do we figure out our most authentic self? What is the very core of our personality and what is just covered up by the environment throughout the years? In what areas of our lives are we just hugely deceived and have limiting beliefs or simply wrong beliefs? We want our self-concept to be as close as possible to our authentic self regarding our talents and preferences in life. The general way of finding oneself is growth. Growth basically happens by an interplay of two phases. The phase of putting yourself out into new environments and experiences in life, and secondly, reflecting on those. The insights gained during the reflection lead to deciding on new experiences you are going to make. It is a process of elimination, a process of trial and error. You have to put yourself out into experiences and you will also waste some time. You will spend some years in a job you actually don't 100% love. Or you spend time with a person in your life you only realize years later that he or she is limiting your personal growth in some destructive way, even though they seem very nice. The bottom line is to always try to steer in the direction of your inner interests. It's an ongoing search, an ongoing questioning of yourself. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of people who are still very actively going through this process. You will get disencouraged, but it is important to stay tuned. Trust in the process and not immediately reject new experiences. It takes courage. It takes courage to be different, but authentic compared to all the others. But that is what gives you most satisfaction in life. It is called self-actualization. In the beginning, you have to put yourself out to a very wide range of experiences to get an overview. And as you get to know yourself better, you can be more specific with the experiences you put yourself out to. Yes, you have to silently reflect, be creative, and integrate the knowledge you gained, but you also have to put yourself out there, get to know people, work together with others, gain knowledge. A good opportunity to gain insights about yourself is traveling with other people, but also alone. If you travel for a while, everything falls away, except you. You are not caught up in your familiar culture. Your friends and family members are not here anymore who put their identity on you, since they categorize you and hold you on to this identity and keep labeling you the way they used to do. You experience and see whole new things and realize how much you're socially conditioned. Maybe you will realize that some parts of you are missing, probably parts that were just triggered by your prior environment, parts which were not fully intrinsically motivated. Another complementary approach is to ask others what they think about you. Yes, you heard correctly. Your identity might be also very valuable to know. This can actually give you valuable insights. Of course, others can never give you the full answer to who you really are, but maybe you're having a blind spot yourself, what you didn't see before. It can be hard to look at yourself in a fully unbiased way. Your friends are also biased, don't get me wrong, but differently than you are. So it might be the case that they show you some corners of your authentic self that you haven't spotted yet. But be careful not to get deceived by simply labeling yourself in a superficial manner. Also, be aware of all the other pitfalls out there. For example, there is a common misconception that people think the way they were treated in childhood leads to their global personality. Studies have shown that apparently the past 2 years of your life are more important than the first 2 years of your life. It's just that often your environment then stabilizes and you don't get out of this circle. And that's why it seems like your childhood had such a huge impact. Of course, your childhood is still important, but it might be not as significant as you might think. Also, be aware that there's rarely a characteristic in life that you can generalize. For instance, it is never the entire person that is depressed, but there is a side within you that is depressed. And this side is also something that doesn't need to be a permanent side of yours over your decades of life. Be a little bit humble when it comes down to label yourself. Nevertheless, being neutral does not mean that you cannot have strong beliefs regarding yourself. Maybe you're strongly introverted or strongly feeling the desire of discovering new things all the time. Note that and match that with your lifestyle. There are tons of personality tests out there if you feel like you want this hard-proven knowledge, and some of them are great. They give you some nice insights about you and at least some things to contemplate about and put things into perspective. You can gain practical insights which you can translate into practical action steps. Those will tangibly improve your life. You feel like you're getting in touch with your ideal medium, and that is great. Nevertheless, those categories are limited. It is the same with language, which is deeply limited. We have all those colors, emotions, and thoughts, and we invent words trying to categorize those constructs. But it is just a very rudimentary approach because all those feelings and everything else is so nuanced that we should have an infinite amount of words. And it is the same with models and categories which try to display the reality. It is only a rudimentary approach, but can already improve your life to the better. My goal today is to give you a much deeper and more humble understanding of yourself, which is supposed to make you more curious and staying tuned with the whole process of self-discovery. Because there's no secret pill, there's no clear defined path which is valid for everybody. And finally, I would still like to leave you with a philosophical and enlightened thought of Alan Watts about the authentic self.
When you peel an onion and you don't really understand the nature of an onion, you might look for the pit in the center, like any ordinary fruit has. But the onion doesn't have a center. It's all skins. And so when you get right down, there's nothing but a bunch of skins. You say, well, that was a kind of disappointing. But of course you have to understand that the skins were the part that you eat. Well, in rather the same way, you see, you find when you explore yourself and your motivations, and you go through and through and you try to find out that thing which is really genuine.